All right, so when you first open Maya, you'll get a little bit of a startup screen and some quick tutorials, but you can just close that out because we're going to be actually going over everything that they do cover in those videos. So when you first open Maya, you're going to have an empty scene and you're just going to be looking at the 3D viewport and the grid. So we're going to go over each piece and we'll kind of identify each thing so that we know a little bit more of what we're looking at, rather than just a bunch of menus and buttons everywhere. So starting off up top, we have our standard menu up top with File, Edit, Create, but then after that, it starts to get a little bit different. And we have actual menu sets that change things within Maya, because otherwise this menu would just keep going on and on and on. So within each menu set, we are able to identify what we're trying to accomplish. So whether we're modeling, rigging, animating, working with effects and dynamics, or rendering, and you can even create your own. For the sake of this volume, we're going to be just sticking with modeling. So within each menu, we have different commands, and if we want quick access, for instance, we can go down to our shelf. So within our shelf, each one of those commands that are located within the menu are located on these different shelves. Now, not every single one is located here, but the most used ones are located on each one of these. So for instance, polygons, if we wanted to create a polygon sphere, we could either go to the menu and go here to sphere, or we can go to our shelf, our polygon shelf, and just click sphere. Now, the shelves you can also customize to be your own. Now, this can be very useful because a lot of commands that I use here and there, I want them all to be in one place. So I'll create my own custom shelf and have them all laid out for quick access and faster workflow. But we'll get into that later on. So in the center here, we have our workspace, as we talked about earlier, and this is our perspective viewport. So if we just hit spacebar, it'll actually bring us out to our quad view. So we have our top, front, side, and perspective views. And these can actually be altered depending on what we're trying to accomplish. Your workspace can always be changed and moved around, depending on what we're trying to do. So as we have our object selected here, we'll take a look at the channel box. The channel box actually displays all the information that is on our object. So the translate, XYZ, rotate and scale XYZ. So if we go in and we can actually edit these values, and I say change it to 3, then we'll see that our object will actually change in size. So if I go through, I'm just going to change these back to 1 for now. So we have a couple more menus up here, and this will change, and you can see this little tabs on the side here. We have our modeling toolkit. Modeling toolkit we're going to go over in another lesson. That is a lot more of a detailed lesson in its own. And then we have our attribute editor. Attribute editor will show the attributes for a selected object or joint or whatever you have selected in the viewport. So down below here we have our time slider. Time slider is used for animation, and you can set keyframes. So I could set keyframe for the sphere right there, and then I could move it down to frame 80, and I can move it across the screen, and then we will have an animation of a ball just sliding across the screen. So say we wanted to go in and tweak our animation a little bit more, because right now we have frame 100 to, or 1 to 120. If we wanted to lower that range or raise that range for that matter, we could just change the range slider of our animation to suit our needs on what we're trying to focus in on. So if I already know that frame 1 through 10 are good, I can just hide 10 or anything before 10 so that I can focus on what I'm working on next. So that's everything I wanted to cover in this tutorial. In the next one, we will be talking about navigating in our viewport and how to change the layout of our workspace.